Welcome in. Dash of DFS brought to you by Toilets to Titles. Catch us at toiletstotitles.com. Don't forget to check out patreon.com/toilets to titles for exclusive content. And also, simply don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. For Joey Arachi, I'm Jeff Mesha. Joe, what's going down, bro?
Here we go, baby. Week 11. I'll just add one thing, too. Every Thursday, we're blasting out a DFS article on that single game contest on Thursday nights. Now, we're not going to talk about the results of that this past week because that didn't go too well. But, we will be back on it next week. These Thursday night games have been a tough shell to crack lately.
Joe, you can't bat 1,000, kid. You've been doing well up until then. So, I mean, don't kill yourself over 1 week. So week 11. A ton to get into, obviously, but just before we get into everything, I have something that happened to me today that I was reminded of as I was giving the website, toiletstotitles.com, patreon.com/toiletstotitles. I had a guy today, as you know, I work Saturdays. I had a guy hit me with, he was giving me his website, he hit me with a www. His website. Who still says www? What is this, 1995?
It's HTTPS /
right.
/ //
Yeah. I mean, are you going to give me the .org? He lost all credibility the second he said www. So,
and he uses AOL to get online.
Yeah, it has to. Still, I'm sure he still has those CDs that have all those minutes on it for AOL. Anyways, like I said, week 11, a ton to get into. Obviously, we're missing a big piece tonight. Mikey's got some fam in town. He's the anchor of the show, so hopefully Joe and I can clear things up or help out a little bit. I know we're not as good as Mike, but we try our best. So we always typically start with the fade of the week. Joe, why don't you kick us off, man? Who you fading this week?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm looking at quarterbacks, and I don't think I'm loving. I don't think I want to hit up Josh Allen for 8,500 this week. And I'm not necessarily calling it a fade. Obviously, you're happy to start him in any regular, lineup that you have for a league. But he's been 25, 26, 19 his last 3 DraftKings games. And last 3 weeks on DraftKings anyways. And I'm just not sure if that's worth the salary. They're going through a midseason lull. When they're as good as the Bills, you can probably go through that. I'm happy to go through it now and come out the end of it, the end better and more driven towards the end of the regular season. So I'm not worried about them in general. I just don't know if I love Allen for 8,500 when you got Hurts for less money. You got Justin Fields for almost $1,000 less, Joe Burrow for almost $2,000 less. So I'd be a little weary at Josh Allen at 8,500 this week.
Right on. And once again, a little side note, that Bills-Vikings game, I have never seen a more ridiculous ending in my entire life. I was on the edge of my seat. I could not believe you're up 4 and you fumble in your end zone. But anyways,
there were, usually I was looking at last week just to kind of like, what do I want to remember from that? And out of all the crazy endings there have been to games this year, that's probably taking the cake as the best regular season game so far. But I mean, like that Lions-Bears game last week was insane.
Yep.
It was another week of Colts-Raiders. It was pretty crazy. The Packer game, Packers winning against the Cowboys, keeping their season alive. And then, the upset of the week probably was, Monday night. Well, definitely was Monday night. The Commanders, a double-digit win in Philly. Like, why are we even betting the NFL anymore? I'm asking myself this question every week. Fantasy is one thing. I feel like there's some skill in fantasy. We're here to bring that, and I feel like more times than not, that shows through. But as far as betting, the line and the money line to pick a team to win these games, you're flipping a freaking coin at this point. It doesn't matter what the matchup is.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. And our thoughts go out to those in Buffalo who are dealing with about 19 feet of snow right now. So that's why the Bills are playing in Detroit this week, as I'm sure everybody out there knows. Anyways, fade for me. I know we typically talk about quarterbacks, but I'm going the running back route. I'm fading Jonathan Taylor. He's home against the Eagles, 8,700 on FanDuel. I get it. He had a big week last week. There was, Jeff Saturday had a nice debut. They played the Raiders, blah, blah, blah. I'm not buying it with what I have seen from Jonathan Taylor so far this year. To me, I can't think of a better example of a bust number one pick more so than Jonathan Taylor this year. I don't know if anyone comes to mind for you, Joe, but I'm trying to think of somebody who's been a bigger bust.
So the thing with Taylor, as far as this weekend in general goes, is I think this is a really interesting one for Jonathan Taylor. Because to your point, he's coming off a big game last week, finally, literally his first big game since week 1. He went 22 for 147 and a touchdown against the Raiders, who have a really crappy defense. So now they have the Philly matchup at home. And, the game, our boy Mikey's all about the game script. And the game script tells us that Indy's going to have to score some points. Indy's going to be playing from behind. And those are really tough scenarios for Taylor to have another big day. So what I would say is I don't love Taylor. He's 7,800 on DraftKings. I don't love that. I don't love Nick Chubb at 8,200 at Buffalo, and I've loved Chubb all year. But again, that feels like another game strip scenario where it's just not going to be in his favor. But Jonathan Taylor, I'll say this about if he has another big game this week, I think he's back. Because now that'll be a big game against Philadelphia in a game where they have no business even really being in it. So if he has a big game this week, I'm going to feel pretty comfortable with him going forward. But yeah, I wouldn't play him in a DFS lineup this week.
Yeah, I'm just not buying it. I mean, again, flip a coin sometimes. We have all our stats to look at. And of course, anybody can be wrong in any given week. But it remains to be seen. And one thing I want to see trending on YouTube and Twitter is hashtag Joe loves Chubb, because you literally said I love Chubb, which for all, this is okay.
Well, better than last week. If
we're getting old and we're finding amusement in some weird places. Anyways,
he graduated from foreskin to Chubb. But hey, one more thing on running backs, and then there's always the enhancement that the foreskin gives the Chubb. But But you know what? I would throw it in my hunt this week, and that's Kareem Hunt. But that being said, the running back situation this week is really interesting because all the guys at the top, and obviously Saquon Barkley, phenomenal year. Dalvin Cook's been really coming on strong lately. Kamara, Jacobs, all these guys, 7,000-8,000, and they're not bad plays. But when you're looking at running backs this week, Damon Pierce, Houston, 6,500. Tony Pollard, 6,500. Cordell Patterson, 6,200. David Montgomery with no Herbert anymore. He's hurt. 6,100. Swift, 6,100. Kenyon Drake and Deontay Foreman, 5,900. I mean, I just rattled off probably the best 3, 4, 5 running backs over the last few weeks, and they're all in the low 6,000s or even less. Yeah. So last week we found ourselves finding a lot of value in wide receiver, and I think that worked out pretty well for me, although you needed to have some high scores last week because of some of the big days. But this week, in my opinion, I don't pay up at running back because I'm loving some of the middle of the road salary guys there.
Yeah. And we won't get too juvenile and let the show go off the rails, so we'll reel it back in. But you're right. And it seems like this year most weeks you find more value in wide receiver, but that's a great point about this week in particular as far as running back is concerned. I bring up Mikey, talked to him earlier. He's fading a couple guys. He's fading A.J. Brown against the Colts. Colts defense. Okay, maybe they got a little bit of a push because of the Jeff Saturday motivation, but they should have been a more legit defense than they've showed all year. But I think it's starting to kind of come around for them. So Mike's fading A.J. Brown. He had
fading. One catch last week, Mish. How does that even happen?
It's funny because we bagged on the guy one time. Is he really a number one receiver? And of course, that particular week he had 3 touchdowns, and then he hasn't done anything since. But Mikey, his other fade, he's fading Alvin Kamara. The Saints are home against the Rams, and Rams Rams run defense is legit. Mike is kind of staying away from Kamara on that, and I tend to agree with Mike on that take. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, honestly, the Saints are driving me nuts this year, fantasy wise, because it's like 2 bad games and then it's a big game. The only guy, and this is kind of funny because the only guy I trust right now for the Saints, and not even trust, but if I'm going to spend money, I'll spend $3,000 at tight end and try freaking Jawan Johnson, who's got 3 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns in the last 2 games and 4 touchdowns in the last 4 games for them. But other than that, I'm with Mikey on that. I just they're a mess.
And then there's also the drama of Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
Saying he's complaining that he lost his job due to injury. Nobody should lose their job due to. Come on, guy. You simply weren't performing, and you got beat out by Andy Dalton. Just sit there and take it.
Yeah.
Anyways.
And then what's the deal with them? Like the other thing too about them that drives me nuts is we all talk. We have these weeks every year where Taysom Hill is the trending topic of NFL and fantasy conversation because he puts up this 1 or 2 big games, and then and it's not they don't even use then he doesn't even get on the field or he doesn't get any targets the next week. And again, it's not like it's an offense full of weapons. Why isn't he being used every week?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, which we can't answer. We're not in the locker room, unfortunately.
That's true.
Well, on the flip side, paying up for who you got this week? Who are you paying up for?
Yeah, I'll go one at each position. I'm paying up for Justin Fields, but I don't feel like I'm paying up for him because he's the 4th most expensive quarterback for the main 1 p.m. slate on DraftKings. So at 7,600, I feel very good about that considering he's putting up 43, 45, 26, and 24 in his last 4 games. They're at Atlanta. Some people want to tell me Atlanta's got a good defense, but I just saw Carolina beat them 25-15. So I'm feeling pretty good about Fields there. I'll pay up there. Running back. And again, I don't consider this a pay up at all. Ramondre Stevenson is 6,700. The guy, I mean, he's doing it every which way for them. No reason why I wouldn't think he would do it again against the Jets. I think that's great value. And then I will give, I am going to play Stefan Diggs this week, 8,300. 4 out of his last 5 games, he's 25 points or over. And he's cheaper than Devontae Adams. Obviously, Cup's hurt. He's 800 cheaper than Justin Jefferson. And here's a funny AJ Brown thing. And just to make Mike's point, AJ Brown's 8,000. Stephon Diggs is 8,300 and CeeDee Lamb 7,500. CeeDee Lamb went for 41 DraftKings points last night, and he's 500 less than Brown. And Diggs, who I just said has gone for 25 plus 4 out of 5 weeks, is 300 more. So, I mean, right there, even if you like A.J. Brown, and you can't argue with somebody for liking A.J. Brown on a given week, he's a great player, but how can you take that risk when you can bump up 300 or go down 500 and know you have a great number 1 for the week? It just, Mike's onto something. It doesn't make sense.
No, I can definitely hear where you come from there. Which kind of begs the question, I suppose, since you brought up Diggs. I guess maybe the question is what player offensively benefits more of the game being inside in Detroit as opposed to being outside in Buffalo? I mean, you brought up Diggs. I'd have to contend Diggs benefits probably more than anybody, but I don't know what you think about that one.
Yeah, and it's funny. I'm laughing at myself because I'm saying I'm not going to pay up for Josh Allen this week, but I'm going to pay for Diggs. And let me explain that real quick. It's really more of a reflection of Justin Fields. And why are you going to pay $900 more for Josh Allen when you can have Fields? So that's part of that. Obviously, if that game was played in Buffalo, it would have been like the Patriot Buffalo game last year where there were 7 passes in the whole game. And obviously the running backs would have been cash cows, all of them. Now, if it's normal weather, I mean, Diggs and Allen and that whole offense, you can unleash them like normal. That offense is weird, though. Like, even Gabe Davis. And I love Gabe Davis, but he's kind of in that A.J. Brown thing, too. Sure, you can take the risk and know that 1 out of 3 or 4 weeks he's going to have a huge game for you, but he's not worth the price either because he's hit or miss fantasy-wise, too.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny how we look at that game and neither one of us brought up anybody from Cleveland. So
I
Not very
know.
high on him.
And I talked about fading Chubb, but you know what's funny? And I do have a Cleveland guy in my lineup this week, but we'll get to that later.
Okay. So I have a few I'm paying up for. I mean, I've been saying Fields now. This is the third week in a row. I don't want to beat a dead horse because we've seen what he's done. And to your point, it's not even really like you're paying up for him because the guy has been outstanding. He's been a one-man wrecking crew. It reminds me of Michael Vick. I forget what year he came back. It was almost like a joke. Oh, let me take Vick when he gets out of jail and he gets back to the Eagles. And the guy destroyed numbers, if you recall that season.
Yes.
Fields reminds me of that. And if not better, I mean, it seems like he goes for minimum 100 yards rushing each game and at least one rushing touchdown. And that's just on the rushing side. Forget about, throwing and everything else. The guy's been outstanding. So, again, anybody could see that Fields is done well. And we're not telling anybody anything new on that. So,
no, but here's one. I was thinking to myself while you were talking about that, Fields played Detroit last week. Right. And he's playing Atlanta this week. So 2 softer matchups. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm wondering if Fields is going to be good against the bad teams, but he's not going to be there yet against the good teams. And Maish, take away the Detroit game. He went for 45 against the Miami defense. He went for 26 at Dallas, Maish, and he went for 24 at New England.
Yeah.
Best defenses in the league. Pretty much.
I mean, he's the vast majority of the offense there. And you don't see that too much with, I mean, you see it with Allen and Jalen Hurts, but it's just those kind of special guys who have that kind of talent on their feet, especially that are making those plays and are putting up those points on a weekly basis.
It happened like this, though, because through the first 5 weeks, his high score was 17. and now since, so, I mean, he flipped the switch. I mean, they traded for Claypool, and I mean, Mooney and Kmet have been more relevant lately. Now, whether, is that Fields being good? Is that those guys clicking more? Who knows? But whatever it is, I'm more than happy to take advantage of it.
And I'm glad you brought up the first 5 weeks because on a personal note, I want to thank whoever in our league dropped him, and I was able to pick him up after that. So I don't know who it was, but I appreciate it. So paying up for Wise, and you brought this guy up. I'm paying up for CeeDee Lamb. He's at Minnesota. He's 8,100 on FanDuel. To me, that's kind of a bargain because he's got 38 targets over the last 4 weeks. The guy has obviously stepped out as the best wide receiver threat that Dallas has, and I can see him going for big numbers against Minnesota. They're not the best passing defense in the league. And people can put up some yards against him. So I see Lamb having a big game. Another one I was looking at. Yeah.
I like Lamb again because you got 5 or 6 guys who are priced higher than him, and there's no reason to think he can't be as good as any of them. I mean, 15 targets last week alone.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I can see this guy having a big week. The other one I was looking at is Josh Jacobs. He's at Denver. I know he's 8,500, and the Raiders have been spotty at best as far as offense is concerned. But Denver has one of the, if not the best passing defenses in the league. So I can see the Raiders kind of giving Jacobs a lot of touches and going to the ground more so than through the air because of that stout Denver passing defense. So I'm paying up for Jacobs, and I guess I'm never confident these days with anybody from the Raiders because of what has happened with Josh McDaniels and the debacle that has gone on over there. But and on the flip side of that, what's amazing too is Denver hasn't scored more than 23 points in a game all year. Not to go off on a tangent, but you got to be kidding me with this. You bring over Wilson, you give up so much, and you can't get over 23 points.
Yeah. So the one thing I was looking at too on the Jacobs thing, and you're 100% right about Denver. That offense has been atrocious. I don't give a shit how many leg lifts Russell Wilson's doing on the airplane or what. But Devonta Adams is a game time decision right now, and it looks like a true game time decision. Jacobs had 8 targets last week on 6 catches, in addition to a rushing touchdown and 20 rushes. So if Adams doesn't play, that makes the Jacobs play even better because he's going to really have high volume.
Yeah, I hear. On that note, why don't you get into your lineup for this week and kind of who you're going with, why you're going with them, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, there's been so much variability lately. I find myself been making 2 lineups for the main slate, but this week I really liked how the one came into play, and I don't feel like I missed out on a lot of guys I was looking for, so I'm really sticking with just one. And we're going Justin Fields for all the reason that we already talked about at 7,600. Our running backs this week is Ramondre Stevenson, 6,700 against the Jets. Just played the Jets a couple of weeks ago, went for 21 DraftKings points. He's gone for 20 plus 4 out of the last 5 weeks. And then the other running back is going to be Ryan Robinson Jr. for Washington. Now, this guy's had a weird, his whole freaking season has been weird, right? He got shot prior to the beginning of the season.
Well, that's unfortunate, yes.
Yes, he missed the first 4 weeks. Comes in right off the bat. He gets a ton of touches. People think he's just taking the job. Then all of a sudden, Antonio Gibson has a relevant week 8 and week 9. And we're like, okay, I guess maybe not. Maybe we spoke too soon on Robinson. And then Robinson comes out Monday night at Philadelphia at the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles, goes 26 rushes for 86 yards and a touchdown. So obviously the Commanders had a very, very specific game plan in place there, and it worked. And now they are facing the 32nd ranked rushing defense in the league with Houston. And at 5,300, I'm loving Robinson to get in the end zone again and get those 20 carries and hopefully 100 yards. It looked like you were going to say something. What do you got?
Well, I was going to say, because we've discussed this at length, but you brought up some good points and you backed it up there. I always say don't get caught up with what somebody did the previous week alone. I get it. He had a lot of touches, and he didn't really have many yards per carry if you're looking at it. But
what do you do? Yeah, 26.
Don't look at that alone.
You're right.
You're right. I'm not sold on anybody on Washington as far as You could maybe make a case with McLaurin, but outside.
I really hate my lineup now. Because this is the first time all year, and I'm surprised at it too. But I'm playing McLaurin too, and I would have never expected to have two Commanders in my lineup. But given the fact that the Houston, I watched the Giants against Houston last week, and Barkley ran all over them. So for 5,300 and that salary, I like Robinson. McLaurin, and I don't know what he is on FanDuel. I was going to ask you. He's only 5,900 on DraftKings this week, and that's after putting up 8 for 128 last week against Philly. So I love McLaurin at 5,900. I don't need him to get 25. If he puts 15 up, I feel good about that at that salary. So I was really excited about that play. I am paying up for Stephon Diggs at 8,300, as we discussed. I think he's been 20 plus 4 out of the last 5 weeks for Buffalo. Their game has been moved out of the bad weather to Detroit. And then the other funny one, because we were talking about Cleveland, Donovan People-Jones. Now, this is unbelievable. So he's 4,600. I'm playing him. I love the game script for him. They're going to have to throw and score points to beat Buffalo. If Peoples-Jones gets that trash fourth quarter yardage, I'm all good for that. But this is going to blow you away. Peoples-Jones, he's double digits 4 straight games. He's got at least 4 receptions in 6 straight games. And he went for 99 yards last week. Now, he doesn't have a touchdown, where is obviously the rub there from a fantasy perspective. But when you're dealing with, DraftKings is a full point PPR. So he went 5 for 99 last week. That got him 15 points. So at 4,600, I really like People-Jones. And then just to stay at wideout, I'm flexing Garrett Wilson for the Jets at 4,900. He's gone for 92 and 115 yards respectively the last 2 weeks against the Patriots and Buffalo. And now this is another matchup against the Patriots. No reason to think he can't do that same thing. And we're talking 4,900. We're not looking for big games out of these guys. Robinson, Peoples-Jones, and Garrett Wilson, they get me 10 to 15, and it's worth their price. And then, here's where I'm paying down. Let's talk about paying down. Kylan Granson for the Colts, tight end, 2,900. He went 4 for 57 last week. He's gotten more looks with Matt Ryan, so we are going to take a flyer there. And then we are going to round it out with the Patriot defense, 3,700 home against the Jets. So I'm fine with playing Garrett Wilson. He can get that trash TD. I still like that Patriot defense to to go bully around that Jets team a little bit this week.
Yeah, I can see. I'm not very high on Wilson, especially if he's already played the Patriots and had success. You don't see success twice too often against Bill Belichick. But I mean, this is a salary cap thing. You have to kind of find space where you can, and you need the players that you do.
So I will say, I could. So just to play devil's advocate, Mason, I know then your lineup. Would you feel better about Darius Slayton? Because I could have Slayton home against Detroit. Slayton's gone for double digits 3 weeks in a row, and he's the same price. He's $100 more.
I guess that's really. I mean, you want to talk about flipping a coin. If I like Daniel Jones this week, and I'll get into that, and I took him specifically because his running capability. I never look at Daniel Jones for a passing threat too much because he's just simply not that good. So I guess I'd have to lean Wilson, the Wilson connection, for lack of a better term, for the Jets. And I can't believe I'm taking somebody from the Jets, but I don't trust Daniel Jones as much through the air, really.
Yeah, no, Slayton's been the only guy who's done anything for them through the air lately.
Yeah.
But, so what do you got?
Oh, and speaking of that, I mean, how thrilled is Kadarius Toney to be on the Chiefs? By the way, I mean, yeah, he looked really injured the other day, on that Achilles, or excuse me, that hamstring. Yeah, that looked rough.
Yeah.
So, as we know, I like to go a couple different lineups. I can't believe I'm saying this, but my stack lineup this week is the Bears-Falcons game. I can't tell you I mean, when's the last time anybody stacked the Bears offense? So I got Fields, Montgomery, and Kmet as far as stack is concerned. You're coming back with Cordarrelle Patterson. You filled in with some along the way, because obviously you and I are very high on Fields, and we're going to continue to be.
I love Kmet right now too. I'm actually looking to see what Kmet cost on FanDuel.
Let me see here. I didn't look that one up too much here. Let's see. Kmet he's 5,700. So, I stacked him there. My regular lineup, obviously, we're dealing with salary cap. I had to fit some other stuff in. So I'm going Daniel Jones in my regular lineup simply because of what I said as far as the feed is concerned. 7,800 versus Detroit. I got Josh Jacobs at running back, 8,500 at Denver for the reasons we discussed. This is kind of a flyer because of the health of the other running backs with the Ravens, but I'm going Kenyon Drake.
Yeah, he was good last week.
Versus the Panthers. He had a lot of attempts. I don't know where Dobbins and Edwards stand right now. I guess we'll probably get into that more tomorrow on the Blitz, I guess.
Yeah, I think Dobbins is out. I think Edwards is like a game time call.
So he's at 6,800 as far as running back is concerned, home versus the Panthers. I already talked about CeeDee Lamb at Minnesota, 8,100. I really like Tyler Boyd at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's pass defense has been atrocious. He's 6,800 at Pittsburgh. I said at the beginning of the year, hasn't panned out that great. I always had that one guy, Joe, and Nico Collins was that guy. Although I don't have a whole lot of confidence in anybody from Houston. But he's home versus the Commanders. He's 5,900, and I had to fit somebody in salary-wise somewhere. Hunter Henry, again, salary-wise, 4,900, home versus the Jets. Kind of a go-to guy here and there.
4 for 40 and a touchdown. That's all you need.
Yeah, that's all you need from that guy. And Mac Jones kind of looks his direction a decent amount. Flex, I'm going Miles Sanders at Indianapolis, 7,300. Obviously, we expect Hurts to have a big game. Sanders has been he's been quietly really good behind the scenes and stacking up some of the yardage there. And I'm going Giants defense at home versus Detroit, 3,800, because it seems like Detroit can play good offense at home, but they are awful on the road. So that's kind of where I'm sticking as far as lineup is concerned. Any points of contention from you on any of those?
No, I feel pretty good about that overall. I like the 3 bear plays, all of them. Montgomery with no competition behind him. People love to forget how good he's been for them, fantasy and consistent over the last few years. So I really like that. No, it makes a little sense. I mean, you need Nico Collins to do something this week, and I know Chris Moore has been the guy there. The last is like the number 2, but they got to throw it. They got to get some trash yards, so it's got to come from somewhere. No. I'm looking forward to sending you some texts when the Jets light it up during the day tomorrow, and the Commanders.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that, brother. So
it's funny because I'm a creature of habit. I don't like rookies as a rule. In the 25 years that I've been doing fantasy football, I don't love playing rookies. I don't love playing guys from bad teams, and I usually really stick to that. But it's in this year, it's just a whole, and it's been trending this way the last few years, but it is really, I mean, anybody can beat anybody on any given day. You can take the worst teams in the league like Jacksonville and Detroit and whoever else, and they have a lot of fantasy relevance, whether it's been Jacksonville with their running backs, whether it's been Detroit with Amon-Ra St. Brown and their running backs. So it's really like, you got to look at everything, not taking any, it doesn't work because you sit there on Sunday afternoon and all of a sudden the Commanders are beating the Eagles and they're running all over them. And if you don't have that big play, you're out. So you really can't be prejudiced against the bad teams anymore or the rookies. And I'm trying to, it's evolution, baby. I'm trying to evolve with the times.
You gotta change your ways, kid, So with that, like I said before, check us out, toiletstotitles.com. For exclusive content, go to patreon.com/toiletstotitles. As always, like, subscribe, and share. As I mentioned last time, I think every share gets the Jets new padding for their locker room. So that helps the Jets out. So that's a nice charity thing they got going on. So anyways, and until tomorrow, we'll see everybody in about
13 hours.
13 hours for the Blitz.
I just said 11.
13 hours. It'll be good to see everybody. But thanks for joining us, and hope to see you tomorrow, guys.